In this episode, I sit down with Mile High Dave from Galactic Gardens out of Colorado. I like this episode because we speak about the simplicity of how he irrigates his garden, feeding once a day and hand watering most of the time. I like it because you don't always need to have a crazy crop steering strategy or a substrate monitor. As you can see from Dave's Instagram, at MileHighDave420, he's crushing just fine with what works for him. I really appreciate you guys for the support. I hope you guys gain something from this episode that helps drive success in your garden. Now, Mile High Dave, I've been following Mile High Dave for a long time, and I'm a big fan just because you just grow some serious fire. You know, you're consistently putting out fire, and you're always hunting, right? I mean, like how often are you hunting?
All the time. I started out when I decided that. So my basic reason for doing the hunts I do is because I want to start my own breeding company, and I believe if I'm going to start a breeding company, I need to start with the best of the best, not the best of what somebody else has found, but the best of what I believe it to be. So, you know, when I first started out, I spent like $12,000-$15,000 on seeds, and I bought all the, you know, latest drops from all the top breeders. You know, everyone said, this is the best, this is the best, this is the best. And I think I started with like 400 seeds. And from that initial hunt, that's how I found, like, you know, some of the more popular stuff like the Dantes Inferno and Tokyo Sunsets and Watermelon BXs and stuff like that, Watermelon Z Skittles.
Pull the microphone just a little closer.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's probably better.
Like some Watermelon Z Skittles and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm constantly hunting, always popping new seeds. I feel like being a cannabis connoisseur for as long as I have, I always want something fresh, something new. So when I think in terms of like what I want to bring to the people, I just think in terms of what I would want for myself, you know. So that's like my motivation, and constantly looking for new stuff, because I know that I would get tired of it shortly. So I always want to have a variety out there. So, you know, people can always be like, oh, he's got this, there's this, there's this. And I could grow something different. As of right now, I could grow something different, you know, every cycle for the next 5 years before I'm back.
With the bank of seeds that you have.
Right. With the bank of cuts that I found.
Yeah.
Not even seeds, just keepers that I found. I could grow something different, you know, for the next 5 years before I'm back to the first one that I started with.
When did, you know, what's crazy is you grew up in Rubidoux, where I grew up. We grew up in the same spot. What year did you graduate from?
I graduated in 96.
In 96.
Yes.
I graduated in 2003. So you got some age on me.
Right.
When did you get into cultivation out here in Rubidoux?
No, it wasn't in Rubidoux. It was when I moved up north. I moved to Santa Cruz. And I got into cultivation when I lived up there. My roommate at the time was like, hey, you know, growing herb is the way to do it. And I was like, oh, yeah, like, show me. Like, I've always, you know, when I was a teenager, I used to read High Times magazine. I'd be like hiding in the bathroom reading High Times. And my dad used to think I was in there like reading porn. And I was actually just High Times. I'd be in there for like an hour. He'd like, listen, son, I know what you're doing. I'm like, man, you have no clue. Like, I'm trying to figure out how to grow the fire flower. Like, yeah, I like chicks. I like chicks too. But it was always about the weed. That was like always my first love. You know what I mean? Like, so when I was living up north in Santa Cruz, and my roommate was like, dude, you got to come with me. I'm going to show you how we do this. And that, you know, that's how I kind of got started. We used to mix our own organic soil. We go buy like big bags of perlite and vermiculite and worm castings and bat guano, and, you know, make these big, huge, you know, 20-gallon organic mixtures, and, you know, grow these big outdoor crops. And at the time, it was like the most amazing thing to me. I just remember just being like in love with the whole process, and just knowing that this is always what I wanted to do. But the legality of it is always what really stopped me from stepping into it full force, you know.
What year was that when you got in, when you started that up in Santa Cruz?
I would say that was like 98.
Yeah, that was early.
99 maybe.
Yeah, that was
around. It was around 98, 99. I was like 19. So maybe even earlier than that, maybe 96.
Yeah,
97. Yeah, around there.
Yeah, so back then things were serious. I mean, if you got popped, you got
hard felony for like, you know, anything over an ounce was a felony. So, you know, that was before Prop 215 even. Yeah, it was risking a lot growing for sure.
Yeah, for sure, big time.
Yeah.
And when did you start hunting right away, or when did that start? Because I follow you and you're in it, you know.
So right after before the pandemic hit, I had a nice little sweet online sales business. I used to sell a lot of comic books and like collectible toys and stuff. And I made considerable amount of money selling comic books. You know, I had an ad on Craigslist where I bought comic books in bulk for like 10 cents a piece. And, you know, I would go buy like a few thousand comic books and look through them, and I'd find books worth $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. So, you know, I've always had that like hustler mentality. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I'm going to make my own way type. Like I've never really been good at working for anyone, you know, in a regular 9-to-5 setting. So I kind of like doing what I do. I'm able to be my own boss, and that's like the highest value to me. Because like I said, I'm terrible in a regular 9-to-5 setting. Like I don't really, you know, do good there. So,
when you usually do a hunt, and how large is a hunt? Like how many?
When I first started, so right after the pandemic ended, and, you know, like when the pandemic hit hard, like it kind of tanked my online sales business. And I looked at my wife and I said, "Hey, look, I'm going to get a state license and I want to grow weed." Like, and she was like, she was always been against it. You know, I was like, "Hey, let me set something up." She's like, "Nah, I don't want to, you know, we have kids. I don't want to deal." Okay. So when our finances really took a hit, she was like, "Okay, if you get a state license, like I'm behind it." Like you know, at the time she was a manager of a grocery store, and I was like, "Okay."
And you were running a comic books.
I was running like a eBay online sales thing. You know, we're selling comic books and in the secondary market. And
were you still cultivating a little bit on the side?
I just had a little tent.
Okay.
Yeah. So I, you know, always had my little tent going. But you know, so when I got my state license, she was like, "Okay." And once she saw that, you know, things started to pick up for me, she, you know, decided to leave her job and stay at home and take care of the kids so I could really dedicate all my time to cultivation. And that's when I really decided. I kind of had the plan when I stepped into it. I said, I'm going to, you know, find the best of the best plants out there, and I'm going to start with seeds. I'm not going to start with, a lot of people have a tendency to look for the best cuts they can find. I was looking for the best seeds because I wanted to be the guy that came with the best cuts. That was my motivation. So in hunting, you know, when I stepped into it, I was like, okay, I mean, I know what good plants look like to me. You know, I know what I want to smoke. So that's all I'm looking for. I don't think I do anything special in terms of when I'm hunting beyond looking for what I want for myself. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't think I'm doing, you know, anything spectacular. I think I just have an eye where other people don't.
What are you usually looking for when you're doing a hunt?
First and foremost, I'm looking for terp profile, something unique, something that I haven't smelled before. That's my first go-to. Right? When I you know, when I'm in a room full of plants, I walk around, I stick my nose in every plant. And when I find that one that's different, then I look for other factors, like does it look better as well? There's like, if I can find some that hit like 2 or 3 of those, like one that's like crazy unique smell, crazy unique look, yield is nice, like, you know, better than the average, those are the things I'm looking for right off the top. I think different terp profile is what I'm looking for over anything, because if you can bring something unique to the market, people will flock to that. if you have something different that nobody's like, I believe like the Dante 6 I have that I brought with me to MJ Biz Con. I personally, in all my years of smoking, have never smelled a terp profile like that. That was just like this cherry candy, crazy, like artificial sugar flavor. So that right there told me I have something special. And when I brought it around, some of the best in the industry, and they're like, holy fucking shit.
That's pretty much how I was.
Well, that's what Craft Farmer said. And like, I even like, these are guys like when guys from the Jungle Boys are like, dude, this is fire, bro. Like Walt was like, Ivan, they're like, yeah, dude, you got some fire. Like, I'm like, maybe I am onto something here. Like, it just kind of confirms what I already believed in my mind, but I'm not one of those people. I can't be my own hype man. So I need other people to tell me this is like, I'll never say I have the best. Other people can tell me all day I have the best, and I don't even think I'll ever really believe it because I'm always kind of critical of myself, looking for something better, looking for more. But when some of the best in the industry are like impressed by what I'm doing, that tells me I'm on the right path.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because you don't hear that a lot. I mean, I heard a lot of guys saying, "Oh, we're looking for yield, we're looking for THC, or even PM." Resistance against PM and veg. Do you look at those as secondary characteristics to terps?
I do. Like I said, flavor profile is what it's all about.
Yeah, 100%.
For instance, the Dante 6, it has a tendency to herm under the slightest stress, and especially has a tendency to herm on the lowers. Anything that's not getting like full amount of high PPFD tends to herm a little bit. So I tend to trim all the lowers off so I don't really get that too much. But I've had growers grow it and like freak out like, oh, this thing hermed out on me. It's terrible. It's going to ruin my whole crop, ruin my whole garden. And it's just like, it's one of those plants that like you just have to understand that there's a risk versus reward here. You're like, yeah, the risk is any stress and it's going to herm, but the reward is you're going to have a phenomenal terp profile that you've never seen before. So for me, the risk is worth the reward. For other people, not so much. Now, I've grown the plant, I've grown it a dozen runs, enough to know that the pollen, even though it herms, I'm almost 100% the pollen isn't viable because it's never seeded anything. I've had it tested. It came back as 100% female. So, which leads me to believe that I probably have some sterile pollen, that it herms out sterile pollen when it's stressed. So that to me is worth the reward. If the end result is worth it. There's worth that little bit of risk. So other people might look at it like, that's something, herm is a big, like, I don't want to fuck with that in the industry. Like you say this plant has a tendency to herm, people are like, don't give me that. I don't shy away from things like that. When I saw that it hermed and it had a tendency to herm, I was just like, okay, let me trim the lowers off. If it herms up top, I'll just kill the whole plant. But it never did that. So it was worth growing in the end. And then when I smelled the terp profile, I was like, holy shit, like I can't get rid of this. So even though with the little herm tendency, I have to keep this because it's so unique, so special,
How big is your library right now?
I say I have about 40 Phenos. Out of the 40, I've probably put maybe like 18 or so out there. I have about 20 that I've never released, never even shown, but I know that they're winners. I'm just kind of...
You've never even shown them?
Never shown them.
Wow.
I have several that I've never shown, just kind of waiting. It's kind of like when
your arsenal.
Like you're an artist. You make all these paintings. You don't necessarily want to just show everything at once. I'm kind of waiting to roll them out slowly. And I'm also kind of waiting till I can fully immerse myself in the white market and just drop this huge library to the masses, which is what I want to do. I really want to bring the best of the best that I can find to the people. I believe I have an eye that a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people are lazy, and a lot of keepers are lost through lack of skill. I think there's way more
lack of an eye to recognize,
lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, how many keepers do you think have been lost due to the fact this guy's overfeeding?
Yeah.
You know, you're never going to know it's a keeper unless you grow it right.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference between me and a lot of people. And I'll just be the first one to tell you, I'm not doing anything special. I'm not some prolific, well of knowledge. I'm not some, crazy, extraordinary, talented grower. I'm just somebody who pays a lot of attention to detail, and I spend a lot of time in the garden.
Yeah.
That's it. A lot of people are like, oh, dude, I get, it makes, I never thought that anybody would look up to me in this life for anything. When I get DMs and people are like,
you got a lot of fans, bro. You got a lot of fans.
I do. And
I'm one of them, bro.
People are like, oh, dude, I wish I could, I dream about growing like you. And I just think to myself, like, wow, I never thought anybody would say anything like that to me, because I dreamed about growing like a lot of the guys that I follow. I dreamed about growing like Craft Farmer. I dreamed about growing like the Jungle Boys. I dreamed about growing, looking at High Times. Like I said, when I was a teenager, that was always my dream, to be the best grower, one of the best growers, and that's what I'm just striving to be to this day. Yeah.
Dude, 40 cultivars, it's a lot to manage, man.
Tissue culture kit is going to come in handy for me there.
I sent you one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Have you opened it up yet?
Yes. I have it all opened up, have it all ready. The only thing I need some more containers. Yeah, some vessels so I can really like house everything. But that's my plan as I find more keepers, to keep a majority of them in tissue culture form until I'm ready to bring them out. I already know what they are. I've seen them. So, I've usually, most of the things that I've decided to keep, I've ran more than once. Mm-hmm. My rule is 2, 3, 2 minimal. I like to do 3 though. 3 runs before I'm like, this is something I can share with the masses. I
was going to ask you that. So it's three full runs.
Yes.
Before you'll sell a cut.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Did you give it a go? The 6 vessels that you had, did you test
I have
it out?
not, because I wanted to do a bunch at one time. So I was just kind of waiting to get some more containers so I can do like, a couple dozen at a time, then really fill out. I have a whole VPDome, so I kind of want to fill it all up.
What do you think about the VPDome?
I love it a lot.
Do you like it?
The most life simplifying. This is the best way I can describe it. Simplified my life extremely.
Yeah. Remind me before we leave. I'll send you home with a bunch of vessels.
Okay, cool, sweet.
Yeah, if you could probably take them on the plane with you, right? Yeah,
I should be able to.
Yeah, you're all right. Who are some of the? Do you do a lot of collabs with any breeders?
I have several collabs going right now. Actually, one of the major collabs I have going is with Beleaf. He sent me some Chimera 3 pollen, I'd say about a year or so ago, maybe a little more. And I crossed it to my Dantes 6 a few months back. I got about 100 seeds from the pollination. We're going to test run those. Once those come back viable, we're probably going to do a seed drop.
So you're not only doing Phenohunting, but you're crossing.
Yes. The Phenos that I find that was always my end goal, like I said, is to start my own breeding company. I believe that that's how I'm going to leave a real legacy in this industry, is not only through hunting, but through breeding.
Yeah.
Because, that's something that can live on long after I'm gone.
Yeah. No, respect. I love that. What do a lot of guys that you work with, like, do you hunt for a lot of breeders?
Currently, no, but I have a lot of cultivators that buy my hunts, mainly through, just seeing what I do on Instagram. And they're just like, hey, I'd like to get that because that's going to save me a ton of work. And that's always been one of my missions as well with hunting, is to supply every major facility that I can across the country. If I can save them all the legwork.
Yeah, because it's a lot of work.
It is.
I mean, how long does it usually take you, from start to finish on a hunt?
Usually about 4 or 5 months, just the time of a regular cycle. But like I said, it's usually 2 to 3 runs before I'm like, this is the one.
Yeah, so about a year.
Yeah, so about a year minimal. Like the Dantes Inferno, I hunted that for 2 years before I actually was like, this is the one, you know?
Yeah. Where did that come from? Who was the breeder?
That was a Clearwater drop that they did a few years ago when I was buying all those seeds. Like I said, I spent like $15K on seeds from every major breeder in the industry. And their gear, along with Seed Junkie and Beleaf, really stood out of all the gear that I bought. So, I mean, I can't even tell you about 10 grand of stuff that just got thrown in the garbage, you know? So that's something a lot of people don't take account for. You know, I've had people DM me, how much for this cut? And when I tell them, they get all offended at the price. But it's like, dude, I spent, you know, $100,000 looking for this to give it to you for free. Basically doesn't really make sense to me. Like, I'd like to recoup some of my, you know, expenses as well.
All your energy and work.
Right. I'm not even talking about that. Just monetary cost alone is like ridiculous. Like, I don't think people really understand what it takes to run a large grow and to hunt through a large grow. Like, I've had whole rooms get seeded out, you know, missing males, missed males in there, ended up pollinating the whole room. Like, you know, that's just a big loss. It's like, you know, there's nothing there that I can't even if there was a keeper in there, I wouldn't even know because it got pollinated.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think people realize like the work and the time and the effort that goes into hunting. The end result looks great, but there's a lot of like, you know, ups and downs throughout that getting to that end result. It's not always just sweet. Like, oh, I found this great pheno. Oh, easy, one run, there it is. Like, dude, I'm running this multiple times to make sure I'm giving you something that you can work with. Yeah.
No, I did it. I've done it a few times. It's not easy, especially big runs. What's the biggest run that have you ever done?
In terms of hunting?
Hunting.
400.
Yeah. 400. That is insane.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. And the way that I like to do it is we take cuts of everything before it goes into flower. So now you have to maintain all these little cuttings while you find the keeper. And then when you find the reason why I do that, so when you find the keeper, I don't have to worry about re-vegging and they're ready to go, you know, for the next run. I have some ready to go to test again. And then by the time I'm like, okay, this is one that I'm going to keep, there's already a mom, you know, fully grown, ready to cut out.
Do you think re-vegging affects the health of the plant at all? Or?
I just think it takes too long.
Yeah.
And it's a pain in the ass. And I would rather just have healthy cuts ready to go, you know, versus trying to re-veg something. I just never done it. It's always just makes more sense to take cuts beforehand for me. And just, if anything, I'll keep those cuts in the tray a little bit longer than they need to be. Maybe, you know, they might get a little big, but at the end of the day, when I do decide this is a keeper, it's, you know, fully rooted, ready to go.
Yeah.
So easy to bring it up to production, you know.
Do you have a favorite breeder?
I do, but not only because of the work that they do, just because of their work ethic and their moral standards. So right now, I would say Beleaf is one of my favorite breeders. Not only because of the work he does is phenomenal, but he's just stand up, like straight, down to earth dude, honest. And I think that to me means more than if your gear might be a little bit better than his. Honesty. Like, I've had a breeder tell me, hey, you can't sell your cuts on my site. You know, we only do breeder cuts. You can't sell. And okay, fine, sure, no big deal. Then buy the cut from me. Then take my photos off of Instagram. Then put it on his website and use my name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I can't sell my cuts, but you're going to use my name and my photos without ever talking to me to make yourself money. So, you know, that to me is just like shady business. I've had breeders tell me, hey, man, if you give me all of your keepers, I'll breed with them and I'll give you seeds. So basically you're going to put me back at square one and then take all the keepers
Take
and
all
make
the work that you did.
make yourself a ton of money. Like, hey, I got all these great keepers. I'm going to breed with them and, make money. And I'm going to give you seeds in return so you can keep it going and bring me some more keepers. Like, I just don't understand the logic there. But, it's sad because there's a lot of guys that get taken advantage of like that. Like, I know for a fact that there's breeders who don't actually breed. They just do that initial like F1 cross. Mm-hmm. They put out seeds. They wait for guys like me to find keepers. They buy the keepers and then they sell them as breeder cuts.
Gnarly.
So there's never actually any work done on the breeders, any real work, in my opinion, done on the breeder's behalf. I'd had an interview with Denver Westward recently, and I said to them that I believe that breeders do 30% of the work and, growers do the other 70%. And that might piss some people off, but that's how I really feel. And my logic on it is like this. If you're a championship dog breeder, right, and I buy a dog from you, whose responsibility is it now to bring that dog to championship level? Is it yours as the breeder, or is it mine as the owner of the dog who has to care for, nurture, train, bring this dog to a level where people are going to be like, wow, where'd you get that dog?
Yeah.
I don't know a dog breeder in the game that tries to take credit for people who raise their dogs beyond, I have great genetics.
Yeah.
So that's where my logic is in breeders do 30% of the work. When the grower gets the seed, the work really begins.
Yeah. Now, with this collab with Beleaf and the cross that you guys are doing, is it to move forward and you plan on doing some Mile High Dave seeds?
100%.
And are you going to call them Mile High Dave, or you have a brand?
My brand is Galactic Gardens.
Okay.
And so I plan on dropping all seeds under Galactic Gardens. It's going to be Galactic Gardens powered by Mile High Dave.
Nice.
So, that's like the cross that I did. I crossed his Chimera 3 to my Dante 8, which is probably one of the most, famous of my keepers. I'm really excited about it. I think both parents are, phenomenal. So we'll see what the progeny looks like.
Yeah. I bought the Dante 8 from you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What else did I get from you? I got 6
Watermelon Rush, Dante 8, Moon Blend 24, Pink Z Skittles, and I believe I gave you the Trop Cookie Shortcake.
Yeah. No, that we just started it in the veg, so I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of those.
Yeah, you guys are definitely like all those for sure, especially in the Vegas market. Doesn't really have anything like that. I don't think.
It doesn't seem like they do. No. And that's what's, in Vegas, they're all about new.
Right.
Constant.
Vegas is starving for quality, in my opinion. I would love to set up there.
Yeah. What is so you're talking about getting into the white market. Like, what does that look like for you?
For me, that means, getting a full rec license, where I can cultivate and put my brand in stores, put my brand on shelves. Really, that's really what I've kind of done that in a roundabout way already by providing Phenos to a lot of cultivators, but it's not anything that I'm directly profiting on beyond selling the Pheno,
Yeah.
So I would like to be able to grow quality that the people see me grow on Instagram and be able to put it in storefronts as in many places in the country as possible without sacrificing quality. I think there's a way to do that. In my mind, it's to eliminate, those huge 100,000 square foot grows. And instead of doing instead of doing 120,000 square foot grows, give me 20,000 square foot grows. You know what I mean? And by compartmentalizing the grow space, if I have an issue, it's not going to affect the crop across the board. When you have I think that's one of the major issues with quality right now is people have these huge grows, any issue, and it affects the whole thing. And by then they're just looking at the bottom line. You're not really concerned with how good the product is. You just want to make your money back.
Yeah. No, it's a lot to manage that.
Right.
Anything over, it's a lot to manage anything that size, but more craft, smaller batch, kind of
Even
runs.
in a large space, just, compartmentalize things. That way, if you have an issue here, that's only one room, 150 lighter versus a 500 lighter.
Yeah. So you're currently in Colorado and you're thinking about possibly going to another market.
Absolutely.
What's going on? Like what's going on with the Colorado market?
A lot of people are getting out of it. There's licensed grows up for sale for pennies on the dollar right now, by the dozens in Colorado. That doesn't really seem like a wise business move to try to build something in that market because of that. So many people are getting, now I believe that the quality I produce would hold its own and would probably be profitable for me even in Colorado, but there's other markets where I wouldn't have to struggle as much with the same quality, and I'd get much better bottom line. So I think that's, my line of thinking there is I want to be somewhere where it's going to be easier for me
to operate a business.
Exactly.
To be at least somewhat profitable. What do you think about it is? What do you think it is about the Colorado market that the guys are closing up shop?
Quality. Yeah, quality is sucks. Like even the guys that were known for quality a few years ago are not known for quality now. I think corporate money has bought out a lot of the smaller batch guys in the industry in Colorado, and that has turned into this just money grind of we're going to put out whatever we produce under any circumstances, if it means remediation, if it means, if it means we're washing powdery mildew, like they don't give a fuck, man. They're just trying to make $1. For me, that's just like the antithesis of what we stand for as growers. For me, I want to bring the best quality to the people. How can I do that if I'm just worried about money? If I'm just worried about the bottom line, I'm never going to be concerned about quality because all I want to do is turn a profit. And I think that's what happened to the Colorado market. Everybody was worried about turning a profit and less worried about quality. And that desire to consistently turn a profit has caused the industry to collapse. Basically that. And I would say other markets have had a factor in that in terms of like Oklahoma. Oklahoma is like this big clusterfuck of anybody can go there and just pretty much, I think they're starting to tighten up on regulations now, but like so much, black market cannabis is coming out of Oklahoma that it's like crashing prices everywhere.
Yeah, Oklahoma seemed to throw a wrench in everything.
Right.
Yeah, Oklahoma
and people don't really realize, like, we can talk about black market and white market, but one affects the other. If there's a shit ton of black market weed flooding the market, that's going to affect the white market 100%, because less people are going to go buy there. If you can get better quality over here for $600 a pound than you can in the dispensary for $100 an ounce, where are you going to go?
Yeah, 100%.
And I think that's what's really hurt the market in Colorado is not enough people focused on quality. Everybody's wanting to just make money.
Everybody's just focused on volume.
Yeah.
I think more, on the bottom line and producing more to flood the market. Do they have, do you know how many licenses are in Colorado?
I don't. I like I said, I know I was just looking the other day, and they're being sold for pennies on the dollar. I was looking at, there was a 15,000 square foot facility with the cultivation license. Med and Rec was like 80 grand.
Giving it away.
They're giving it away they're just like, dude, just get me out of here. I'll take anything.
Yeah.
I've had some DMs like that too. Guys like, oh man, you looking for a partner? We don't know if we're going to get out of the business. You looking to buy a facility? And I'm just like, I see too much of that in the Colorado market. And it just seems like a risky bet for me to try to invest a bunch of money to build up something that's not going to be successful or profitable.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. I think back in the day, everybody wanted to be in the white market until they got in it. So you might want to be careful. It's, it's highly regulated, and most all the states it's highly taxed, and it's hard when you're fighting against traditional market and you're taxed. I mean, you're not in a bad place. It's like what you have going on right now with being in the traditional market is actually a really good place to be in. It's not.
Well, that's kind of why I've stepped towards breeding as well. I feel, with the recent regulations on seeds being classified as basically hemp and being able to ship them without any issues, I think that's kind of pushed me more towards breeding as well, because it's something that I can do without having to worry about a ton of regulation.
100%. I think that's a great idea.
Right. And it can be extremely profitable if you do it right.
Yeah. Yeah. How often are you selling cuts? I mean,
I usually sell cuts weekly.
Weekly?
Yeah, weekly.
That's
for well over a year now. That's the primary source of my income, I would say. It comes through clones.
But you're not selling clones in volume, just selling the genetics.
I absolutely will sell clones in volume too.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually like anything over 500, I do like bulk orders. But mainly just the genetic to the average person that inquires with me. Once in a while, you get people that want like 500, 1,000, 2,000. I've had some partnerships like with Clone Colorado in Colorado, which has enabled me to get a lot of my finds out to the med and rec markets. So cultivators, and I've had some breeding projects with them where my cultivars end up in metric, and that's been profitable in terms of like the royalties deal I have with them as well. So yeah, I sell cuts weekly.
The you've been cultivating a long time, and you've grown organically. You've used a lot of different lines in a lot of different ways. How are you currently cultivating right now? Like what media are you using? What size?
I grow in cocoa. I grow in 5 gallons. I use 100% cocoa. I'm running the Pro line. Yeah, I hand mix daily. I don't have a dosatron or any type of automated feeding, so I hand mix my nutrients daily and hand feed. I have drippers set up, but I mix it in hand feed, just drop the pump in there. But that's for me, I believe that your plants like the nutrients fresh, so I like to mix them daily. I don't really believe in the big batch tanks. Maybe that's where something that I do a little different than a lot of people. I believe in mixing the nutrients every day.
So when you're hand feeding every day?
Yes.
How do you like that compared to drippers? I mean,
Well, I have drippers, but I just, I mix in my 50 gallon and I drop my aereo mix in there and it feeds the whole room. But in terms of like an automated system, I like that better because I feel I have a more hands-on approach with my garden, and being more hands-on, you're more susceptible to notice issues sooner. If you just have everything's automated, you're probably not up and close and personal as much with your plants as you could be. Mm-hmm. So by me, I even like to hand water sometimes. I ain't gonna lie to you. Sometimes I skip the drippers altogether. I'll go in there and hand water just so I can be underneath each plant and examine it as I'm watering. And a lot of people will say, well, you can't do that when you scale up, but you can. It just depends on how much work you want to do.
No, I've got guys that are hand watering 1,400 liters.
There you go.
On Athena Pro line, and they're making it happen. Cocoa, 5 gallon pots, just like you.
Yep.
Hand watering, 1,400 lights. It's a lot. So you're doing mainly 1 feed a day, one drench.
One feed a day. I do kind of do like a dry bag technique by feeding less water in the beginning. So let's say I have 100 plants in a room, or 75 plants in a room. The first, couple of weeks, they might get 50 to 100 gallons. And as we get, heavier into flower, I might top out at about 150. And then as we get later into flower, I'll bring that down, back to about 175 daily. Just really depends on the feedback I'm getting from them,
So you're just doing regular hand watering and veg, full saturation.
Yes.
Right. And then week 1 through 3, are you stacking a little harder, or how's that? Or you watering less?
Watering less.
Watering less.
Less water in the first 3 weeks. I would say like 50 to 100 gallons a day.
Okay.
And then in like week 3 through 6, probably upwards of 150 gallons a day.
After week 3.
Right.
Okay. So kind of, do you do a lot of runoff tests?
Every day.
Have you seen the new runoff guide we did?
I have not.
Go take a look at it right there. It's after ProLine. I want to get your feedback on what we're doing. So you do a lot of runoff tests.
Yes, I test runoff every single day.
Here, let me find it for you. So we did this. It's a really cool chart.
I believe that's like one of the key factors to growing quality is monitoring runoff.
That's what I was going to ask you.
EC and pH,
on your runoff.
Yeah, I keep things within a certain range, and the plants seem to love it.
So look at you can see week 3. Yo, Maddie, hand me the other book over there.
And, this is about what my runoff looks like. That I usually keep my runoff the entire time. I never let it get over 6.
Yeah, so that's what we got. So you got pH of feed, 3 EC, week 1 through whatever in veg, and then week 1 through 3 in flower, we're feeding a 3 EC, but our runoff is a 6 to a top out of a 7 EC. Do you think that's a little too high, or what? Or you think?
I don't think 7 is too high. I've honestly had my media EC get all the way up to 9, 10 without any issues. And the reason for that is by giving it adequate runoff. So you can let that PC this last run, I really let the EC get up there, kind of testing to see like how far I could push it. And I found that as long as I gave adequate runoff, like 30 to 40% runoff, I wasn't getting any burn at all from that. So,
okay.
The only thing on this chart that I would honestly change would be, especially growing in cocoa, I would adjust the pH. I keep my pH between 6.2.
6 and 6.2, and we got 5.8 to 6.1.
Right, and the reason why I like my pH a little bit higher, if you look at the nutrients that cannabis absorbs through that pH range, it's actually absorb a little bit more like boron and magnesium and like the higher pHs, and they absorb the same amount of all the other nutrients at 5.8. So why not feed it a little bit more where it's getting a little bit more of everything as well as what it was getting at 5.8? This is my logic there.
What about, have you ever grown in Rockwool?
No, I've never grown in cocoa. Soil, I went from soil to cocoa, and I kind of just fell in love with cocoa. I was like, cocoa can be a little bit more forgiving than rockwool from what I understand, which is why I like it. So, yeah, if there's some EC or pH fluctuations, cocoa can handle that versus rockwool. I just don't want to fuck everything up.
Yeah. What do you think about the runoff numbers as far as in flower on the EC of week 4 through 6? 5 and 6 EC runoff numbers.
I think those are good numbers. Personally, I never really let my EC get over 6.
Okay.
Unless I'm purposely doing it to kind of test to see things, but on average, I keep it between I feed it 3.5, so I keep it between 4.5, like 6.5. It doesn't really ever touch 7.
Okay. Okay. And then flush out week 7, 8, 4 to 5 EC, 3 to 3.5 EC week 8 on your runoff.
I think starting at like week 7, my EC is usually around 6, and I start to bring it down daily by like a point or, a couple points. So if my runoff is at like 4 at week 7, each day I'll bring it down like 0.2
okay.
until we get down to the end where it's at like 1 or 0 or, a half an EC or something. That's usually what I do. Bring it down slowly the last couple weeks.
Why do you think runoff is so important?
That's how you can tell when you're, what to do next, in my opinion. So by testing runoff today, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. And so if I don't test runoff today, how do I know what I'm doing tomorrow? That's really all it boils down to for me. If I test runoff and I notice EC's a little high, a little low, pH high or low, I make my adjustments accordingly, and I always try to keep things within the range. That's what I was saying. I kind of just stick to the fundamentals. I don't really do anything spectacular. I'm not feeding them like, unicorn shit or anything. And I just keep things simple, man. I have my ranges that I like, EC, pH ranges that I like to keep everything at during flower, and that's just my main focus, is just keeping things there. So that's why I test runoff every day. So I know, if I need to make even the slightest adjustment, I can make it the next day.
Would you adjust pH if you saw
absolutely
a lower pH come
absolutely
out? You would adjust it to a higher
100%.
pH.
So if pH is coming out 5.8, I'm feeding at 6.4.
Okay.
Until pH is adjusted accordingly. So the next day I might test it again and it might come out at like 6.0. So I'll go in again at 6.4.
Yeah.
And then when it's like at 6.2, optimal for me is if I'm going in at like 6.2 and it's coming out at 6.4, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That means everything, all the available nutrients is being taken up by the plant.
Yeah. You're currently using Proline right now, right?
Yes.
Are you adding anything to it?
No.
How do you run it? How do you just mix a batch?
I mix it daily, so I know some people will mix like a bag into a smaller batch tank and kind of liquefy everything. I still measure the powders by gram. I kind of haven't evolved into the other method yet, I guess. I'm one of those people, if it ain't broke, why fix it? So it's working for me to just continually measure. I guess if I had a different setup where I was growing at a larger scale, I might want to go ahead and mix a 25-pound bag, but I enjoy the process every single day of weighing out the grams and mixing each one and adding the nutrients one by one. I enjoy that process.
So you weigh it out of a 25-pound bag?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every single day.
That's great.
Yeah.
How much? I wonder if you use the 2-pound pouches, because we make the 2-pound pouches that are.
I've used the balance of the 2-pound pouches.
Yeah.
But I use the regular traditional Proline in the 25-pound bags. I noticed the liquid balance is a little bit different than the powdered balance.
Yeah.
I like the liquid balance a little bit more, I think, than the powder balance.
Yeah. No, it's personal preference.
Right.
We made powder balance for complex irrigation systems like Metaflex.
Right. I don't have any of that, so I don't need that. So
the liquid potassium silicate is real great, and then also potassium silicate helps fight against PM.
Right.
When you feed it. So that's actually a big benefit. What do you think about when you hear people trying to add things to Athena Proline?
Don't do it. People ask me all the time, "Oh, do you do this? Do you add this? Do you add that?" And I constantly tell them, "No, I just use the Proline only." And a lot of them seem like They don't believe it. Like, you got to be adding something else, man. Like, what do you do? It's like, I think a lot of people don't realize there's no mystery ingredient that's going to make you grow better. It really is the time you put in your garden. There's no magical teaspoonful of shit that's going to make your shit better. There really isn't. You just got to put that time in, put the work in, you know? When are you defoliating? Like, are you checking like, I had a buddy, he's like, man, I never get over 1 pound of light. And I'm like, well, what's your runoff numbers? He's like, what do you mean? So I look at runoff as important as climate. I mean, if you don't know, you got climate, you got temp, humidity, CO2, your climate is just, your EC values and your pH and your media is just as important. 100%. And if you got meters checking your climate, nonstop, then you should be checking your runoffs. What I think weekly. What do you think? I would say minimal, like 3 times a week. That's just my personal opinion. So you're on it. But I actually test like 5 times a week. You test every day. I'm almost a little anal retentive just because I like to make like even the littlest adjustment. Sometimes like minimal, I'm testing 3 times a week, but I like on average to test at least 5 times a week. So you're testing almost every day. Almost every day. Yeah. Now you're just testing what's coming out of the pot when you feed. Right? I'm testing what's coming out of the bench. So yeah, whatever particular bench is running out at, I'm usually testing that, and then I'll make my adjustments accordingly. Okay. So you take an average of the bench, collect your runoff as it comes out of the plants as you're doing your normal feeding. Right. And then you test that, and then you like to see pretty much what we have on our chart, minus 0.5 in the first 3 weeks, because you're at 6 to 6.5 on your EC runoff. We're at 7. Right. So we're like got a 0.5, and that's not going to make a big difference as long as you're giving your plants enough. I think the number one issue that salt growers have, even new salt growers have, is not giving their plants adequate runoff. And so that buildup, causes all kinds of other problems. Once it gets within the danger zone, it's just like, you have all kinds of fucking uptake problems after that. Yeah, I'd be going into spots and I'd look at some plants and they're not looking too hot. And the first question I asked is, hey, what's your runoff look like? They're like, what's runoff? It's like... Yeah, that's my favorite answer. Yeah. What's runoff? I'm like, well, there's your number one problem right there. Yeah. And like I said, even pH, a lot of people don't, they don't really pay much attention to pH. But like I said, if you look at the chart of elements that cannabis absorbs, they actually absorb more between the 6.0 and 6.4 range than they do in the 5.8 range. So that's why I tend to, keep things there. Yeah. What lines were you using before Athena? I used Floraflex for a while, which I found to be really dirty. I used Canna, which I never really got any great results with that. I used Fox Farm, Ocean Forest. That was fun. I was a big Canna guy for a while. Like, Canna is not terrible. For like 4 or 5 years, I was dedicated because I think I had used so many other lines, and I finally found one that I was like, okay, like this is a solid line. Like I can trust this line. Giving you good results, right? It was giving me good results. Well, that's my main thing why I use Athena over everything else. I've literally gotten the best results. I mean, people can say whatever, They can rag on the salts. They can say, "Oh, you're Athena. You're just buying hype," and I'm not a hype guy. I don't buy into hype. I buy into results. So I can say unequivocally that I've had better results with Athena than any other nutrient line I've ever used in my 20 plus years of growing. That's why I'm here. Yeah. For no other reason than that. If it didn't give me the results, I wouldn't be here. Yeah, appreciate you, man. Yeah. How do you like using Fade? Like, have you started it? I enjoyed Fade. I started it at the recommended 43 days the first time. I like the results. I tried it again at day 50, and I like the results a lot better.
Yeah, maybe 2 weeks before.
2 weeks before, even like the last 10 days. But
yeah,
2 weeks to 10 days before, I think is better than the last 3 weeks.
The week 3 is a little too much.
Yeah, a little too, in my opinion.
What did you see? A degradation in yield?
Slightly, smaller yield, just a little bit degradation in development. It wasn't quite as finished as I like it. But I did notice terps were significantly stronger, and trichome development seemed to be a lot more, even starting at day 43. When I did it at day 50, results were phenomenal. So
day 50 is your sweet spot.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot for me. And I can't say that for everybody. I would say, listen to your plants and do what works best for them.
Yeah. No, I think the 2 weeks at the end with fade. Are you still using it now?
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
I'm getting much better terp profiles from it for sure.
Yeah. Are you seeing any visual differences?
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing more trichome development with fade, and I'm seeing more colors as well. Definitely bringing out the rainbows in it early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often are you doing a lot of COAs, or you have partners doing COAs?
A lot of people that I sell cuts to tend to do COAs. So, I get a wide variety of COAs from all across the country, which is pretty cool on the same cuts. So like I had a friend who grew the Dantes Inferno in New York, tested at her for 17%. I had a friend who grew it in Oklahoma, tested at 32%. So, and it really is the grower makes the difference in the COA, in my opinion. COAs can really just vary like a grower's quality varies, It really just depends on who's growing it.
Yeah. And that's like multiple COAs from the same lab, and you can get like continuous data.
Right. And that's the other thing. Labs are so, the data varies from one lab to the next. It's really hard to be like, get one COA from a lab and be like, this is the standard, because you can get another COA from another lab and the results be widely different.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. What lights are you using right now?
Thinkgrow LEDs currently.
Right. How are they going?
I've loved them from day one. We've run a lot of side-by-sides, we ran them in side-by-sides against a lot of other lights, and they just outperformed a lot of other lights that, we ran them against. I like them a lot, but I'd still be willing to try something different,
Yeah. What about, are you using any different kind of veg lights?
I use Thinkgrow Veggies as well. I believe that you should use the same light type of lights in veg and flower, so that your plants are getting the same spectrum all the way through. I don't like using different light brands or different types of lighting for veg versus flower.
Have you ever done like a higher red spectrum on your lights?
Thinkgrows do run far red. So yeah, I do run the far red the last 15 minutes before the lights go out, and the first 15 minutes when they come back on. So they get 30 minutes of just straight far red every day.
And are you running CO2 as well?
Yes.
What
I run about 1,500 ppms.
1,500 all the time?
Yes.
What about...
taper it down towards the end, but through peak flower it's about 1,500 ppms.
Peak flower in veg?
No CO2 in veg.
No
just
CO2.
Whatever CO2 is in the building, just basic CO2 levels. There's no CO2 burner in veg at all. Do
you see a significant increase in quality and yield when you're running CO2?
I run high PPFD, and I believe that the two coincide. So, by running high PPFD, increase the amount of CO2, and that keeps my plants from burning because they're really close to the lights. I definitely see a difference with CO2.
What PPFD values are you running in the beginning of flower?
Like around 12. Well, in the beginning of flower, like 800.
800?
Yeah.
And then what do you peak out at?
About 1,200.
Yeah.
Yeah. 12,
that's the sweet spot.
Yeah, like 12. About 1,200.
And what are you doing in veg on PPFD?
In veg, it's really low. I keep my lights at like 5-10% in veg. So I'd say PPFD is probably in the low, like 200s.
Oh, that's really low. Yeah, that's like clone.
Well, I never run my veg lights over 10%.
Okay.
There's a lot of people out there I see running veg at like 30-50%. I find that they do a lot better under really low light.
Yeah. What do you for the cultivators out there, what importance would you give PPFD to the canopy?
High importance, but it's like that has to be meshed with all the other environmentals. You can't just run high PPFD and be like, these should be blowing up. Like I said, if you're going to run high PPFD, you should increase the amount of CO2 so your plants can take that. If you're just running high PPFD and you're not running high CO2, chances are you're going to burn your plants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. What about temp?
I like to keep my temps between between 74 and 80 degrees during the day and 74, 68 at night. I don't usually like them to swing more than 10 degrees, 10, 15 degrees through day or night. So I try to keep it within that range.
Do you see a benefit of doing diff, day-night diff?
I'm still kind of testing that out. I've heard
it's so funny that you say that because Bruce Bugby did a ton of testing on day-night differential, and zero diff, he said, is completely fine. So temperature from day to night the same with no diff. It's the higher night temps that create a lot of problems. So anything that's a higher night, but there's really no negative impact, I guess, on lower night temps. But if
that makes sense.
If you have zero diff, hasn't seen any positive or negative effects.
Interesting.
And it's pretty interesting to have.
Yeah, because I haven't really, like I said, I try to keep the swing within 10, 15 degrees and I just keep it like that at all times. And I don't really see any, adverse effects at all by doing that, which is why I've always kind of done that.
Yeah, but it's interesting to hear that you didn't really have an opinion on it yet.
No, I
didn't. Because it's from the research that they've done, it's pretty much on par. It's the same. What about what do you like to keep your humidities at?
So during flower, I like to keep my humidity around 60-65%.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I run LEDs. So I get a much better yield like that. A lot of people might, again, textbooks would say run your humidity at 45%, 50% during peak flower, but that to me has never worked out as well as running a little bit higher humidity.
Yeah, I agree. I think that 60% is a nice sweet spot. But
I agree 100%.
Most people would probably disagree with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like I said, the textbooks would say 45, 50%. And you can do that, but in my opinion, especially if you're running LEDs, you're going to get a much lower yield.
Yeah, 100%. When running LEDs, do you used to run HPS? Obviously, you've been in the game a long time.
I ran HPSs, but never at scale. Back in the day when I was growing, it was all outdoor.
Okay.
So light depot, outdoor, that was what I was doing at scale back, 20 years ago. So when I stepped back into okay, I'm going to grow full time, I just went straight for LEDs. I was this LEDs are it. It can save me. I don't have to run these fucking these light coolers. I don't have to run AC as hard. It's going to be half the amount of electricity. Yeah, they're more expensive to start with, but worth it. And they pay for themselves within the first year.
Yeah. Back then in 96 when you first started growing and doing outdoor, did you have any close calls?
I had more than that, man. I went to prison for cultivation.
You did?
Yes, 20-something years ago. Luckily, my record got expunged, but I went to prison for cultivation. Yeah.
How long did you go?
I did 16 months with halftime. I got busted for 37 plants.
Can you talk about how it went down?
So I was growing in a house with a friend of mine, and I'm pretty sure this kid who came over to get some, buy a pack or something got busted, and he told on us, and we got raided, and
he was an informant.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he either was an informant or he got pulled over on his way wherever he was going, or got busted and was like, these guys got it over here.
Which would make him an informant.
Right. So, so he, I'm pretty sure he told on us, and we got raided, and I went to jail.
What year was that?
That was 90. Let me see. I was 23. So it's 22 years ago. So that was like 2000?
Yeah, 2000s.
2001, I believe it was. Yeah.
And just 36 plants outdoor?
Yeah.
Pretty large? Or?
Well, yeah. At the time they raided us, the plants were like almost finished. So it was a big, it was like pounds and pounds of outdoor weed to them. They were counting everything. They used to weigh the whole plant. So it was a pretty big charge. I had a lawyer, and he beat it down to like a lower cultivation charge, and I ended up doing 16 months in state prison with halftime.
Damn, dude. Damn.
Yeah, so I was telling my dad the other day, we were talking about it, and I told him, I said, the same thing that took my freedom away all those years ago is the same thing giving it back to me today, giving me more freedom than I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, dude. Respect.
So I feel like I deserve that one because, it's fucked up to go to prison for cannabis, especially when you're around some real hardcore criminals and you're not that.
You're not supposed to be in there.
At all.
Yeah, yeah. How do you think that affected you moving forward in the industry?
It made it so I was basically in the dark for decades. I never wanted to get into the white market until recently. I think Instagram being a vehicle of promotion and networking has really opened my mind to say, okay, I can do this legitimately and not have to worry about going to jail.
Yeah.
And that was my wife's main thing. She was like, dude, you've been in this trouble for this shit before. I don't, I'll support you if you go do it the right way. At least you get the minimal amount of paperwork.
Yeah.
At least. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. For you're super under the radar. You've just recently started coming out in the last, year, if that?
I would say the last 2 to 3 years. The only difference between why you never heard of Mile High Dave 3 years ago to why kind of more people know about me now is I decided to dedicate my life to this plant. Really 3 years ago is when I said, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it like I know how. And I'm not going to fuck around. I'm going to dedicate all my time and all my energy to doing this right. So here I am, and I that's the only thing that separates me from the next guy, I think, is just my dedication to it. I don't think I'm special at all. I just think I'm really dedicated to what I do.
100%. Yeah, you can tell, but you can tell that by the quality of your flower. When I was at MJ Biz Con, you brought and gave me some Dantes Inferno number 8, and I was just fuck, blown away.
Yeah, that was a lot of people's reaction to MJ BizCon, which was it kind of really made me feel good about the path that I'm on, because I feel like, some of the top guys in the industry are giving me recognition for the flower I've grown, guys that I've looked up to, for a decade or more. So for them to be like, oh, dude, your shit's fire. You're growing some killer. You're doing it right. I'm like, okay, maybe I am on the right path here after all,
Yeah.
So
I think going through an experience like that, pulls you back a lot and kind of adjusts your path for sure. It's happened to me, and much respect.
Thank you, sir.
So no, just want to thank you for making the trip out, bro.
Thanks for having me. I like I said, I haven't been to California in 20 years, so
Yeah.
it was a.
Does it look the same?
It was surreal driving over here. I was like deja vu. I was like, man, everything looks different. Like I didn't recognize anything, honestly.
It's been 20 years since you've been back home to Rubidoux.
20 years, yes.
How old were you when you left here?
23.
You were 23 when you left Rubidoux.
Yeah, when I left California.
When you left California.
Yeah, I was 25 when I left California. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of things have changed down here.
Yeah, I know. When I left, they just had Prop 215 was just like, just becoming a thing.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why I stayed in Colorado. I think they were the first state to legalize. And I was like, oh, yeah, fuck it. I'm staying right here.
Yeah.
This is where it's at. Having been through what I've been through, first legal state, I was like, yeah, this is where I can smoke my pot and grow it and not have to worry about going to fucking prison for it.
Did you know anybody down here in the cultivation industry back in 96?
No, I knew. So I would say 98, I moved up to Santa Cruz. And, that's when I really started getting into the cultivation scene. Like I knew a lot of guys who were into the Prop 215 movement, and they had med cards, which to me was like, a med card back then was like fucking gold.
Yeah. There was like a little mecca down here in Southern California of growers that, I think probably each individual city or county kind of had their little cultivation crew. And there's a cool little mecca here in Rubidoux, Harupa Valley, Riverside, IE, of, underground growers that all knew each other's names.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes we would meet each other, but most of the times we just heard about each other. We didn't even know what we looked like. We'd all deal with similar brokers and transactions.
So there was a strain back then that was really famous called the Glock. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No. What was it like? Is it an OG or was it?
It was like, I want to say it was like Hawaiian or something. So it smelled like pineapples, and it was like the most heady outdoor flower, like even outdoor, like it was just phenomenal. And it was called the Glock. And I'm pretty sure the guys who were growing it up in Big Bear area. Like it was coming from out of there. It was going
off up there.
Yeah.
My boy Dave at Grassroots, who used to live up there during that time.
Yeah.
And he was rocking it.
Yeah. The Glock was all coming, and it was one guy in particular that I know that was like, he was like the one who had that particular cut, and I know that like all his grows got busted at the same time, and that's how that cut got, up in Big Bear, and that's how that cut got lost to the ages. But it was like, I remember like in the late 90s, like if you had the Glock, you pretty much had the best herb in the Riverside area for sure.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Back when I was going, it was this OG cut, and I got it from this guy named JJ, and Nikki and Mario were like the kings of the Inland Empire. These guys that I know now, but back then you just heard of them, right? Nikki and Mario, and they were they're really big out here in the IE, doing a lot of different stuff, and it was just like this cool network, and it was interesting. I remember, I got my first cuttings when I was like 15 because this neighbor down the street, I knew he was growing, and I would pester him literally 3-4 times a week to give me cuts. And he finally, caved in. But it was cool to grow up in that, to where you're growing up in this, culture where there's so much trust involved, and there's so much community involved because everybody's networking, working together, and just transactional trust. Yeah. And it's really interesting to grow up in an industry like that, and to kind of see where it's going and has gone.
Yeah, it's made some amazing, leaps and bounds in the last 20 years. Yeah, definitely going from like, clandestine, Walmart parking lot deals to you can just walk into a dispensary and just buy smoke is just amazing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always wished it would be legal in our lifetime. So like I said, that's why when they legalized in Colorado, I was like, oh God, it's legal here? Yeah, I'm staying right here. Not to mention I love the state, but that was one of my motivations for never coming back to California. When they legalized it here, I was like, California, but I was already ingrained in Colorado and I liked it a lot there.
How your relationship with craft farming? You've known Lance for a while?
I met Lance at MJ Biz Con as well.
With us?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I met him I met Lance. I had brought samples to MJ BizCon to give to the more prominent growers. I bought like larger samples, like ounces, to give to Jungle Boys and give to Craft. So when I saw Craft, first thing I said was like, hey, I got something for you. Like I gave it to him and he opened it up. He said, oh my God, look at this fucking shit. Jesus Christ! And I was
Sounds like
yeah. So that made me feel great. But yeah, we ended up vibing. We hung out. We went to the strip club. Shit, I hope I don't get him any trouble there. But yeah, we hung out and yeah, it was we just been vibing since we talk on the phone and shoot him texts now and then.
Nice.
He's a really like genuine, down to earth guy, and those are the kind of people that I like to associate with. Like I don't do fake well. You know what I'm saying? So, like, the more genuine, down-to-earth someone is, the more I gravitate towards them, regardless of how long I've known them, yeah.
Yeah, he's good people. He's
right.
He's loyal, and he's down-to-earth. He's real. Like, there's...
all hard qualities to find in this day and age, man. Like, not a lot of people are real. So,
yeah, 100%.
I appreciate it when I see it.
Yeah. Well, Dave, appreciate you, brother. Thanks for making the trip out.
Likewise.
I got a lot of love and respect. Thank you. I'm definitely a fan.
I'm a fan.
So,
yeah, that's great. We can be fans of each other.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Likewise.
All right.